Yes, Carmen, gotcha.
I got a lot of thoughts. I'm
Okay.
very confused. But to add on to that, to what you were saying about like if we have free will, then that means God is not all powerful. I think I agree with that he limits himself, because like he theoretically does have the power to do whatever he wants, but he allows us to choose. One thing that I always go back to with that is like we have free will, and God knows everything. I believe that God knows everything, he's all-knowing, he knows everything that's going to happen, and therefore a lot of people will say, well, doesn't that take away our free will? But that's sort of like an example that I heard a long time ago, and I still stick with, is like, if I know your favorite color is blue, and I ask you to pick between something blue and something red, like I know you're going to pick the blue one, but I'm still giving you the choice, even though I know what's going to happen. But wouldn't that still make him all-knowing?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another little interesting passage in the Old Testament, God saying, I tested them in the desert to see what was in their hearts, what they would do. So the assumption is he didn't know what they were going to do. So, or he knew, but, you know, but the other part is, if God is all-knowing, then he can't really have emotions, right? He can't be happy because he already has experienced that. He can't be sad because he's already experienced it. He can't be angry because everything that's happening is according to his will. So when it says God is happy or God is joyful or God is this, is that what they call anthropomorphic? Okay.
Nathaniel.
Yes. Oh, Nathaniel, our prophet here.
Oh boy.
You've got a couple of prophets in the room, so we're okay, guys.
I've got a couple of thoughts, and I don't know where one of them starts and the other one ends.
Okay.
So God has the ability to change our desire. He did that with Pharaoh. He hardened his heart to make it so that in the future, which man had no perception of yet, there would be a greater like, what's the word? Like showing of God's power to the other nations when the Israelites were coming to town. And so through hardening Pharaoh's heart, he was able to prepare for the future, meaning that he knew the future. He also changed his will in Moses' story, because when Moses went up to the mountain and received the tablets of stone, God was like, let me destroy these people, but he changed his will because of what he saw in Moses. I feel like God probably limits what he does in this world so that he doesn't like have to judge people. Because if he is super invested in everybody's life, there's going to be a point where he's like, this person is turned away from me. And instead of saying, I'm going to back up and let one of my servants or my sons or daughters help this person, they just have to be judged. I feel like he does it for our good, in order to make it so we have an extra chance.
Good. Yeah, there's another great story too, when God was on his way to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Remember? Abraham went out and said, hey God, let's make a deal. Hey, let's bargain a little bit. You know, because how about if there's like 100 really good guys, righteous guys, are you still going to destroy them? And God goes, yeah, 100, yeah, okay, if we can find 100. And then Abraham goes, that's probably not 100. Well, how about 75? You know, so you had this bickering, this kind of dialogue back and forth between God and Abraham, and God is seemingly going, yeah, I'm a reasonable guy, I can do this or that or this or that. Does that mean God changed his mind about it, or he was just, you know, was this so? You know, the term's anthropomorphic is when you put onto God human characteristics, and that's what the Calvinists they'll argue that, oh, when it says God was angry or God was this or God was that, it was just the Old Testament way of putting human emotions onto God, so God was a little bit more relatable. But he didn't really do that. So we'll have a couple more comments and then we'll move on. Yes?
For the comment, but do you think like God is probably even more as we humans as we think he is, like, because we are created after his image, and what I saw, like, God has emotions, God has free will, God is, not always like, he hasn't decided over everything already, because he's, what is it called, like, flexible. He's changing because of people are asking him. I don't see the reason why we should even bring one prayer to him if he has already decided everything. There's no reason why I would ever bring one prayer to him if he already has chosen, I will do this and this and this, and I will let this person die, and I will let you go this path. Wouldn't make any sense if God would have chosen everything already, and we would have no part in it. And my understanding, like, what I think that God is so much more, even like similar to who we are, like, to like our personality, only that he's perfect, or like, you know, like he's not failable. He's not lacking in things as we do. And also, like, what I thought, like, he gives promises, he gives prophecies, not because he already decided how every single step towards this prophecy will look like, but because he says, I am in the power so that this event happen at this time when I choose this to happen. So, like, what I understand is also, there is no specific time probably for Book of Revelations, because it will happen when he decides that it happens. It can happen every single day, because he can decide today, because he is in the power to do it, and he will let things happen in his time, not in the timing that we want to have. That's like my understanding so far, from what I have written. Yeah.
Good, thank you, yeah, good idea.
Or
Right, let's put it, Jeff, then, and then we'll.
I've written.
What about Psalm 139? I can never escape from your spirit, I can never get away from your presence. If I go to the heavens, you are there. If I go down to the grave, you are there. If you ride the wings of the morning, if you go by the forest ocean, even there your hand will guide me, your strength will support me. And verse 16, you saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. So that means that he already knew what was.
Is that Psalms?
Yeah,
What kind of writing is that?
it's poetic.
Poetry.
I know, but still, it's true.
It's not theology, but it's poetry.
It's true, but it's still true that it's Word of God.
Yeah. Well, and poetry, poetry is interesting because it's almost always metaphorical in the sense that you say one thing to mean something else, right? In all of our languages, we have that. And sometimes I kind of laugh because there's some people that say, well, the Word of God, Jesus says what he means, and he means what he says. No, he doesn't. He rarely said what he meant right away. He used parables, right? Little stories. He would tell a story to his disciples. And oh, by the way, a story where you have to interpret it, you get deep meaning. If you take something literally, you get very superficial meaning out of it. So that's why Jesus always taught using stories, because you can read the story 100 times, and every time you read it, it's deeper and deeper and deeper, and more understanding and bigger and broader. Whereas if you just take it literally, it says that, it means that, okay, good. So a lot of, especially in poetry, you say that's what poetry is. That's what makes it beautiful, is you say these words which give you representations, images of something, and then you can live off of that for years because it means so many things at different levels. So
I agree, but what can it mean then? What else can it mean?
Oh, I think what he's trying to say there is that God loves us so much, and his desire for us. He would love that every day of our lives would be lived in, victory and fulfillment and joy, and we would be in his will, and on and on. And you read it 5 times, and every time you read it, it's something more, it's something deeper. I don't think we can take it, and that bit, I don't think we can take it literally. We can, I mean, you can, but then then you're done, It's that, finished, it's finished, you can't get any more out of it.
I don't agree with that.
Okay, good.
What verse is it?
That's,
Psalm 139.
Yeah.
Both are-
139.
yeah. And that's fine, Jeff, but I don't expect everybody to agree with it. I don't even agree with myself sometimes.
That's good. That's nice.
Okay, we go.
That's
The great French philosopher is speaking just now, so.
Yeah, I wrote something because at first we talked about the all-powered God, and so this is what came to my mind. God is all-powered, but He doesn't use this to impose or prove His power. Our minds are still impacted by the Satan's rebellion against God. We put His power, God's power first in our personal side of Him, because this is Satan's lie. Satan's lie was you will know everything like God, equal. We interested in power first. But first attribute of God isn't power of being the strongest, which actually raises a separation between Him and us, a difference of value. His first attribute is to be a lovely creator, life-sharing God. If He didn't want to be upset, He wouldn't have created us. Yeah.
Okay. Good, well, as we can probably go on for a week on this one. So this is just an introduction, just kind of opening the door, kicking the cage, see what happens. I'll just make one other observation that makes a lot of sense to me, may not be right, but here's like this. I told you that for 7 years, remember I was tracking down this idea of what is time. And finally I came to reading Brian Greene's book going, nobody knows what time is. Get out of that. But one of the things I did on the journey was got exposed to the theoretical physicist. Okay? Now, in my opinion, the theoretical physicists are like the brightest guys ever, and men and women. They're just off the chart, because what they do is they look at the universe and they say, well, if that's happening, theoretically, this has to be going on in order for that to happen. And it's amazing. These guys are really, really good. So what they're saying is now that the general, does anybody know what a theoretical physicist is? Okay, it's physics, but it's the theory of physics, let's put it that way. So you're thinking about what possibly could be going on. And of course, then when you get into what's called quantum mechanics, what's going on in the very, very micro world is probably more impressive than what's going on in the macro world. With the James Webb Telescope, and we're seeing now hundreds of billions of galaxies out there. That's amazing. But the going down, going smaller, is equally as amazing and mind-blowing. So I would say the consensus of theoretical physicists today is, for the world to work as it does, there has to be at least 11, maybe 25 dimensions of space and time. Okay? We live, and our reality is, we have 3 dimensions of space, right? Height, width, and depth. That's all we got. And we have 1 dimension of time. Time's going that way, or that way, whatever. The arrow of time is going, we call it forward. We don't know what that means, because we don't know forward from backwards. All we have is the past, the present, right now, now we lost it, and now it's the past. And then there's the future, which is coming at us. And so I think it was one of the Greek philosophers that said that time was sort of like when you can never step into the river, the same river twice, right? So you step in, it flows past, you step out, you step in, it's a different river. It's time. So you've got the future, you have the immediate presence, and then it's the past. What if there were 50 dimensions of space? What if there were 50 dimensions of time that we knew nothing about? You see, this is what I think heaven is going to be. in my opinion. Heaven will be when we are able to experience the cosmos the same way God does, in all of its dimensions. Like I say, we are really, really limited with our 3 dimensions of space, 1 dimension of time. We see so little bit of what's going on. And if God is living in a reality that has 50 dimensions of space and 100 dimensions of time, suddenly our little questions out here don't make any sense. Right? It makes sense to us in our one-dimensional bit. And oh, by the way, when Einstein had to try to define time, he said, well, he really couldn't do it but he said time and space are the same thing. So there's space-time. So that's why when you look back in time through the telescopes, you're going back in time, you're going back in space, you're going back in time, and theoretically, that's why they're saying we're almost to the point where we can see the beginning of the universe. The Big Bang, which actually wasn't ever a Big Bang, but they call it the Big Bang. When it started, and that's what gets the astrophysicists so excited, is looking back into the past and be able to, because space and time are the same thing, to see stuff going on. So all I'm saying is God is really big. He's really great. Do we know him very much? Well, we know him some, light, but we have no idea what else is out there. And so for us, I'm comfortable with the idea that with the multiple dimensions of time and space, that somehow because God is benevolent, he's loving, he's good, he's kind, that someday we will understand the things in this that we don't understand very well today. We're perplexed. We don't have good answers. We have the best answers we can come up with, but none of them are really very satisfying, are they? It keeps us pushing forward.